Welcome. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with me today, Cynthia. Today, everyone watching the Logan Writers Festival author interviews, we are speaking with Cynthia Terelst. And we've just found out that surname is from Holland. I love the etymology of names. It's just one of my little hobbies to look up how names evolved and that sort of stuff. Now, I'm very fascinated because I think you may be our only romance author at the Logan Writers Festival. And for such a massive genre, I'm really excited that you're coming all the way down from Maryborough to speak to us about it. So,
yes, thank you.
What got you into romance?
Oh, I've always liked romance. So as a teenager, I read Sweet Dreams romances. They were targeted towards teenagers. So that was many, many moons ago. They don't have them anymore. And then I strayed away from romance. I went into dystopian and fantasy and other genres. And then I went back to romance.
I feel like romance is such an undervalued genre. A lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, it's the easy way to make money, but there's so much to romance that you can dive into. Like it's the writing pool where you've got the shallow end and you've got the really deep end, and you can choose where you go because it's so vast.
Oh, it is fast, and there's so many subgenres in romance as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I often hear that quote that romance, it's not important, or it's just a formula. You're just writing to a formula, but you can't just write to a formula. Your characters are different. Your plot is different. The arcs are different. So yes, we all have a happy ever after because that's what a romance requires, but how they get there is completely different.
And you know what? The same can be said for every single hero's journey. It is just a formula. A lot of writing is like that. So to say that romance is less because of it is just really, it's uneducated.
I think so too. It's just a stigma, and it's really not true.
Yeah. So how many books have you written? I can see a couple on your website.
Yes. So I've got 4 books. So they're all based around animal sayings. I come up with the title first because I like to be different. So the first one I wrote is The Cat's Out of the Bag. And that is basically, so in romance, you have lots of different tropes that you can choose from. So I chose for this one, a tortured heroine and a secret billionaire.
So popular.
Yes, that's why I chose billionaire, but I had to put a twist on it. It's a secret billionaire rather than an all-out billionaire where people think, oh, it's all about glamour. And then I threw in some homeless cats. They met at a cat shelter, and then a road trip across Australia.
So wonderful.
Yeah, and that was enjoyable because my daughter and I traveled around Australia for 3 years. So a lot of the places that I wrote in the novel were places that we had visited, and some we hadn't visited, but I just did research on those.
My grandfather is a truck driver, so traveling around Australia seems to be very common throughout the people I'm around. And there's so many adventures to be had when you travel throughout Australia. People don't realize, like, I used to work on cruise ships, and traveling through Europe every day, you're in a different country and there's a totally different language, different food, different culture, everything. It changes so quickly. And then when you're in Australia, you drive 13 hours and you're still in Australia.
Yep.
But there's these beautiful, they're nearly like subtle adventures, or it's like making romance out of the mundane. There's charming little things like when you stop at a gas station or a service station, and it's not a big BP, it's just a little mum and pop store where they've got this little, it's just out in the open, there's no cover or anything like that, it's in the dirt. It's just really charming.
Yep. And some, like when you say dirt, some places have red dirt. So as we were traveling up the West Australian coast, it was red dirt everywhere. And I swear you can't get that stuff out of your car.
It is magical though. That's just enchanting.
Oh, it was great. I would do it again tomorrow if I could.
Yeah. So whereabouts was your favorite place when you were traveling?
Oh, everyone asks me that,
Yeah,
but you
okay.
can't choose one.
What was something that stood out to you when you were traveling?
Okay. So we went to a place called Baird Bay, and that's in South Australia, and we got to swim with seals.
Oh my gosh,
Now,
that's
seals,
incredible.
I know, and seals are nothing like dolphins. So dolphins just swim beside you and then they're off, but seals interact. So they want to play chasey and they tumble turn and they do somersaults and then they look at you like, come on, your turn now. And you just lose time because it's so much fun.
Oh, the dogs of the sea.
Yep.
Oh,
So that
so
would be
cute.
one thing that I would say to anyone to do.
A lot of people don't realize seals really stink. Like they have such a strong odor.
Odor, yes. But when you're swimming
Oh,
with them, you can't tell.
no, keep them in the water. That's where they need to be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another
wonderful.
thing, so on the West Coast, it's so vast and it's so secluded, and there's some great swimming spots up there as well.
So, what made you travel?
Oh, it's a long story, but basically, I got sick of life.
Yep.
So I just decided we'd pack up and go. So I had an 8-year-old, a cat and dog, and we just sold up and went.
Oh, that sounds gorgeous.
Yeah.
It sounds so empowering as well. Like you've stayed within the same country doing it, which is real. Like again, people don't realize how important that is. You've got the same language across. I
Yes.
say that very loosely because some places of country Australia, they've got a very strong accent.
Yes.
And the slang is different from town to town.
Oh, yeah. And they call things different. Like, so say we came from Victoria and we would have a souvlaki, but when you got to South Australia, it was called a Euros. Or in Melbourne, we would just have like a school bag. But when we arrived in Queensland, the kids said to my daughter, put your port in the port rack. And she's like, what are you even talking about? And it was put your bag in the bag rack. But
Yep.
we'd never heard of it called a port ever before.
I moved up from New South Wales, and what got me was when they called a cozzy togs. And I was
Yes.
like, aren't togs like thongs?
Yeah, so you have every state's different. So you have bathers or you have togs. Yeah.
Did you have any trouble choosing the language or the slang that you would be using in the books, or do you not use much slang?
I use plenty.
Excellent.
I love it.
This charm to slang. This charm to slang.
So in The Cat's Out of the Bag, because the secret billionaire was American and the other characters were Australian, they would use slang and he'd get so confused all the time. So then they would have to explain it to them, like go to the bottle to get a slab. And he's like, what are you even talking English? So, and we live out whoop whoop. And he's like, what? So I have a lot of fun with it. I try to anyway.
And there's a lot of swearing in Australian slang as well.
Oh,
Like we have so many different ways to swear. I grew up in the what would be the equivalent of country Bronx, and it was very colorful language.
Oh yeah, like the C word. They use C words just as a friend, and I don't use it in my book.
We had a very strong First Nations influence, so we got some really colorful language that it's not native at all. It wasn't native to the region. It was just absolute slang, and it gets so funny sometimes when you're just part of that community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So what was your latest book? You said you've got The Cat's Out of the Bag was your first one.
Yeah.
And so what other books have you got out?
Okay, so Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. That was the second one. So that is a second chance romance. So again, that's a different trope, but with second chance romances, because it is their second time around, there isn't the development of the relationship because the relationship is already there. So things can move a lot quicker. So this one was, again, I like to put twists on everything. This one is a $1 million scavenger hunt. So we've got Shepherd, who wants to reunite with Tara, and she loves scavenger hunts. So he creates this fake scavenger hunt to get, in close proximity with her. And well, then it sort of backfires because she's going to use the money for something really important, and he doesn't have the money. So he's feeling really guilty, and he's trying to raise the money while developing a relationship with her. So that one's set in Sydney. And the readers go through the clues with the characters, and they go to 5 different locations.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. What a thrill.
It was a lot of research because it's hard to come up with clues that aren't really easy, because you could think of a place and you can come up with clues quite easily, but you have to make it hard for the characters to figure out what the destination is. So.
Yeah. And that's a big trick as well. Writing characters that you kind of feel like are smarter than you, or writing puzzles to solve that you as a person, not just as an author, would probably have trouble solving. That can be really tricky as well. It's nearly like writing a mystery book.
Yes, it is like writing a mystery book, because you have to come up with the clues, but you also have to be able to figure them out.
Absolutely. So you reverse engineering brain teasers.
So that was the second book. The third book is Get Off Your High Horse, and that's a royal romance and a sports romance as well. So we've got Prince Sebastian, who comes to Australia for the polo season, and then we've got Frankie, who's a polo groom, and well, she doesn't really like him. She thinks he's up himself, and he's not really, but she just thinks that way. And she has she's got harbored feelings about a past relationship where she was hurt. So, and that was really good because I was able to incorporate, all of the books have animals. So like the Cats Out of Bag has cats, and Sleeping Dogs Lie have dogs. So I was able to put horses into this one because it's got polo. And so my daughter is a horse owner.
Oh, beautiful.
So I was able to use her experience. My daughter's horse mad. So she is a horse owner. She works with horses. She went to university to do an equine degree. So she eats, sleeps, breathes horses. So I was able to use a lot of her experiences in the book.
There's a trope about the crazy horse girl in a lot of media. And in my experience, it is very real. Because when you get hooked on horses, you are fully hooked on horses. The only thing stopping you is your wallet. But you never mess with a horse girl. Oh my gosh. They know how to wrangle a horse. They know how to wrangle a 200 kilo, 8 foot tall creature.
500 kilo.
Yeah, okay, 500 kilo. I was being like slight. But oh my gosh, you do not mess with a horse girl.
No. And because she deals with race horses, and they're big and they're strong because they have to be powerful. Sometimes she would get dragged along the ground, and she'd be like, okay, I'll just stand here and hold on to you.
Race horses are so flighty as well. They've got so much kind of pep and vigor to them. They're not like just a draft horse or even a carriage horse. They're moving a lot anyway. Race horses store that energy and poof, it explodes.
Yeah. So she has an off-the-track thoroughbred, but she's quite well behaved. Like earlier on, after she came off the track, she still had all of that energy. But as she's gotten older, she's calmed down a bit. So,
yeah. Wonderful. And it's so good because you've got these elements around you, dogs, cats, Australian travel. So you're writing what you know.
Yeah. And so Frankie lived on a property outside of Maryborough. So when they left Brisbane, they came up to Maryborough. So I was able to incorporate that into the story as well. So I thought that was nice to visit my hometown.
Oh, that's really nice. Very sweet.
Yeah.
And what is your most recent book?
So that's Down the Rabbit Hole. And of course, there's a rabbit. And it was the rabbit is actually based on a true story, except it was a hare. So my daughter works on a huge property, and they were on the ride-on mower one day and ran over a hare.
Oh no.
So the little hair jumped out and its ear was chopped off, and it was so tiny it could fit into her pocket. That's how small it was, and she was given the hare to look after. So basically that's how the rabbit in this case is introduced in the book. So lots of people don't realise that in Queensland it's illegal to keep rabbits. So that was part of the conflict within the story. Another part of the conflict, because romance needs conflict as much as everyone doesn't think it does. You need lots of conflict in romance.
That's what makes it juicy.
I know, to make it interesting, right?
If romance doesn't have a conflict, it's like a happy side story, or like a character, like a showing of a character development. It's not the main aspect. It's not the main meal.
So there's lots of conflict in this book. Lots of people read it and they say, oh, this is a really intense romance. So I've incorporated a small town romance, but the small town isn't like small towns when you think of them. You romanticize small towns and you think, oh, news travels fast, but it's such a little happy place and everyone knows each other and likes each other, but not in this small town. So there's the twist, because I have to have a twist. Yeah,
small towns can have the benefit of definitely being warm and cozy and friendly, but they can also very quickly become toxic. They can be very, very poisonous silos to themselves. But yeah, that's a really good spin on it. I love that.
Yeah. And so it also incorporates sustainable farming. So when I went to uni, I did a double major. So I was boring and did commerce because, that's the logical thing to do for a career.
Everyone gets told to do commerce.
I also did sustainable business. So that was the environmental side of business. And I was able to incorporate that into this book.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. Like, as a world building aspect, that in itself is really fascinating, because a lot of people today, fantasy writers, this will be really useful for. A lot of them are like, oh, my world is based on medieval Europe, right? And that's it. They don't have anything else in there, and they don't understand. Again, it's about writing what you know, but they don't understand that these things can be really useful for knowing how that's going to keep circulating. How are people going to continue to survive if they're just planting the same crop over and over and over again in the same field? What's that going to have as an impact on the society, on the nutrition? Oh, I love it. Love it.
Yeah. And the soil, the composure of the soil, if you're planting the same things all the time, it takes those nutrients out of the soil, but you're not replenishing it. So
this is where the blood of your enemies comes in handy. It's high in iron.
Yes. Put it in your paddocks. Blood and bone. Exactly.
You can put those bodies to use if you're having like millions of people die in a war.
Yes.
It's terrible. That's not romance. That's not. I mean, it could be, but it's not.
Well, maybe like ancient Roman romance or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I love romance. Romance is one of my favorite genres, just because it is pure escapism. For those moments, you get to feel like the protagonist in it. You get to feel those special feelings. I feel there's no other book that is more emotive than a romance book.
Yeah, I agree. I love romance.
So do you have anything in the works?
Yes, so before we started this call, I'm currently writing A Bird in the Hand, and that's a opposites attract romance, and again, it incorporates travel. So they're traveling up the west coast of Australia. So they're getting to visit some of the places that I visited with my daughter and experience some of those things as well.
That's so exciting. And when is that one due to come out?
Because I've got lots on this year, and I recently had surgery on my finger.
I saw the photos on your Instagram.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, right? I didn't know how active I would be in my writing. So I normally release every 6 months, but I gave myself a 2-month buffer this time.
Wonderful. Yeah, you've got to do that. You've definitely got to do that. When life throws curveballs at you, you've got to give yourself time to just reposition yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I'm okay with that. Readers might be disappointed that it's not, my normal 6 months, but I'm sure they'll understand.
Yeah. So that's totally fair. I feel like when readers really love your work, that yes, of course, they get a bit antsy and they're like, oh my God, when is the next one coming out? Oh, it's taking too long. Please bring it out. I need it now.
Yeah, hurry up already.
Yeah, but on the other side, they can be like, I love your work so much. I will wait. I am waiting. Please.
Yeah.
I am going to wait.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I have authors like that.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so exciting. What will you be speaking about at the Logan Writers Festival in September?
Okay, so this will be my first ever presentation, and I will be talking about first chapters.
Wonderful.
So just it's not even first chapters, it's the first sentence and the first paragraph that needs to capture readers. And I just go through like the 6 main elements that a first chapter needs to draw a reader in.
Oh, so valuable. A lot of people hear the saying, you don't judge a book by its cover, but you feel like you can kind of judge it by its first chapter at least.
Oh yeah, I actually do judge by covers.
Yeah, everyone does. Everyone does.
I have to be honest. If the cover doesn't, there's so many books on Amazon or in a bookstore. If the cover doesn't capture my interest, I don't get to the blurb, and then I don't get to the actual inside of the book. So, yeah. And then often in a bookstore, I will open the book and start reading that first chapter to see if it captures me. So if it doesn't, I'm out.
I kind of I'm one of those people that likes to just quickly flick through all the pages of the book and see if there's any pictures. If there's chapter pictures, that will always grab me. Or if there's a map, oh my God, I'm in.
You're in? Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely leaning more towards that.
Yes. Recently, my daughter and I went into a bookstore and she picked up a book that obviously she thought would interest me because we have the same sort of taste. And I've opened it up and I've gone, oh my gosh, this first paragraph, I'm buying this book. And then I realized it was the second book in the series.
Oh no.
And they didn't have the first one.
Oh no.
I'm like, well, I'm buying it anyway. And I hope I can find the first one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, you definitely need to be able to get hold of the first one. Down in Logan, we have a really good bookstore. It's nearly a bit mythical. It's called the Really Good Bookshop. So
that's a cool name.
Yeah, it's a good name. But you've got normal bookshelves that are nearly floor to ceiling. Like some of them look like they're a good 7 feet tall. And then in front and behind those bookshelves, so you've got bookshelf and then you've got stacks of book on either side up to like my waist, some people's shin. So you've got this entire place and it is just books stacked everywhere. And the thing that I love is that the lady that helps I think she's the owner or she's the co-owner, Wendy. Oh my gosh. You say, do you have this book? Instantly she knows where it is in all of these mountains of books and where you can get it from. And if they don't have it in the shop, they've even got more at the back. So
that's insane.
It's so good. So if you still need that first book, it might very well be there waiting for you when you come down in September.
Excellent. I still do need the first book. We went back to that bookstore and I bought the third book. Just because.
Yep, getting ready.
Yes, yep. Just can't read them yet. But I've actually gone and bought a second book in a series before, got halfway through it, realized it was the second book, and I've gone, oh, what do I do now? Like, I can't go to the shop and buy the first one. What am I going to do? So I just kept reading and then went and bought the first one and then read the first one and the second one.
It might very well be like a Star Wars thing where you've got like the middle ones first and then you've got to go back and like watch the first ones. Maybe Star Wars isn't the best example of that anymore, but similar, that concept. Yeah.
Yes, so, but I won't read this second one until I've read the first one. I'll be
Excellent.
patient this time.
Let's see if we can get hold of that one for you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This has been delightful, and I can't wait to hear your talk about first chapters and how to make them grabbing.
Thank you. I look forward to giving it.
So you will be able to see Cynthia on the 10th and 11th of September at the Logan Writers Festival. It is still going on. Queensland doesn't have the same restrictions everyone else does. And even if we did, we would probably still find a way to make this happen. So make sure that you get your tickets. Make sure you follow Cynthia on all of her socials because her books look fantastic and her socials are a lot of fun. So
Thank you.
thank you again for coming, and we'll see you on the 10th and 11th of September.